The IPO market has come back to life in a big way in recent weeks as several offerings have surged. So is it a sign of even greater things to come? Let's welcome in Ashley MacNeill, head of equity capital markets for Vista Equity Partners. Good to see you again.
You too.
You saw what's happened in the last couple of weeks and said what?
I said, we're back, guys. We're back.
Are we? Are we?
Look, I think it's too soon to call a normalized IPO market, but it definitely feels like we're making strides to return back to something healthy.
I mean, we've had this conversation so many times about companies staying private for so much longer than they ever used to. And now you look at valuations of some of these private companies like the OpenAIs, when you say it's going to $1 trillion in the private market. Will this force companies to get off the bench and now access the public markets, or do they not need to, as OpenAI is proving?
I think it's sort of two separate paths. So for a functioning, healthy IPO market, you need to have investors willing to deploy capital. You need corporations able and willing to report consistently their earnings, and you need market certainty. I would argue in this market, we have 1 and 2. Number 3, I think we've found pockets of certainty. So we've had investors find certainty in the uncertainty. However, we also have created, through capital innovation and funds flow, a really unique market in the private market. And I do think there are going to be companies, bespoke companies, unique companies like OpenAI, as you mentioned, that will stay private for longer because they have liquidity.
What's the outlook as you see it for software, your bread and butter business at Vista Equity?
We think that software continues to be a fantastic place to invest for all of the reasons we've talked about before: predictable business model, really able to capitalize on generative AI, and really the center or nexus of like the data, the workflow, the automation. Software is going to be the ultimate beneficiary of generative AI.
Are we moving, though, beyond all the belief in what generative AI can do? Because we've seen, real examples, and now it's going to be all about agentic AI when you take the human equation sort of out of it. I know, Robert Smith runs the firm, is really bullish on that.
Well, yeah, we think about software sort of in 3 buckets, and it's a little bit linear about how far along are they. The first and foremost is agentic AI, as you talk about, having actual agents think and do and perform tasks. Then the second bucket, which is actually where the bulk of software companies exist, which is this moving from rule of 40, which is, adding your top line growth plus your margins, adding up to some number around 40. That's going to move to 60 or 70 as they deploy generative AI to really enhance their margin efficiencies and top line growth. And then there's a third bucket, which is software companies that haven't yet embraced the technology and aren't quite up there, and they may lose the right to win.
Interesting. All right, so the race is on. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah,
Ashley,
great.
thanks. Ashley MacNeill.